Okay. Is it recording? Hi, everyone. Are we recorded? Hi. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We have everyone with us today. I'm from sunny Florida. Everyone else is from cold places today. So welcome. Welcome. We are going to go through the roadmap for everybody. So let's see. We'll start with the coldest first. So Tamara, you get to go first today. Why don't you tell us?
To be fair, if you check by my background, I might be on the rebel planet of Hoth, so I might win coldest place. I'm just saying.
You could.
Well, how about
maybe.
real life coldest? We're gonna let
Fine.
Tamara go first. In Minnesota. So Tamara,
Minnesota, yeah.
how about you let us know in development?
One thing in development that has me excited is Microsoft Forms. We're increasing the response quota for forms. So the number of responses allowed per form or quiz is being increased to 5 million.
What?
Yeah, a form owner will be able to export the results into a CSV file for analysis. And that's due to come out March 2022. And that's for
5
GCC,
million.
GCC High, and worldwide, and the DoD tenant.
Yeah, they went from 50,000 to 5 million. So that was quite a jump.
Yes.
What's going to happen to the Excel file that holds 5 million items?
Actually, one of the things
It's
in there,
going to freeze and not work.
There you go. I was reading a little bit about that, and apparently once it goes over a certain point, and it might be the 50,000, it actually then goes into, you're only able to export it into CSV. And at that point you can.
That makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense.
So,
well, cool. Who's next? Who's got something else that's exciting?
I'll go ahead and kind of piggyback on that, because there is one out there for forms. Direct share forms to people in your organization and get email notifications. So this is going to enable you to send out these particular forms to direct people, and you're going to be able to have them get email notifications saying, hey, guess what? I don't think you filled this in yet. So you're going to have a way to get periodic email notifications on these, which is really great. I know that it's always been a bit of a hassle, and people go, well, I want the notifications to go to somebody else. While this isn't that somebody else type change, it is getting to a point where they're starting to look at doing some additional things with email notifications coming off of forms, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I have another forms one I can add on so we can keep the train rolling.
Go for it.
So I don't know how many people have been exposed to bookings. I've had a couple clients that have had use cases where they were using bookings, and I think it's probably one of the underutilized sections that you could go through and do. When you're looking at what bookings can do, it was originally designed for small business and Office 365 to do stuff like, I own a hair salon and need to schedule appointments. But I've had customers' IT staff use it to schedule appointments and follow-ups internally to their own users and work pretty well with it. Well, there's actually a new feature that they added out in development this time, where there's actual forms integration with bookings information. And the idea is, if you go in and set up a meeting in bookings, you can then supply someone with a form to have them fill out prior to their meeting. So we look at the use case of like what some of my clients were doing, where maybe I'm an IT staff and people can schedule appointments. You could then send them a form that asks them details about what they're maybe going to want to be asking you about. Maybe says like, reminder, please make sure you have your logins and stuff like that. I just thought it was a really cool way where you can more structure, so that way you're coming prepared into the meeting that the person scheduled. Because the one thing about bookings is different from maybe how you'd work for a traditional IT staff is it's user initiated. So the user is going to go in and say, I'm going to schedule a meeting with this person to go in. So under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have a time to ask them prep questions or stuff before the meeting. This gives you the ability to do that, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, cool. Since we're talking about forms, here's one that I think is good. This was in, it's kind of been in development for a while. I think even for a while it was kind of rolling out, or it's been out. I mean, I've seen it where they had apps. They had an app inside of Teams that was
the polling app now.
The polling app. But basically it's back on in development, and it says, based on learnings from early feedback, we've made the decision to make additional changes before we proceed with the rollout. So basically, they put it out there.
We screwed up. We took it
Well,
back.
actually, I don't think it's screwed up. What happens is a lot of times is they'll roll something out and they're trying to get to MVP. And MVP means minimal viable product. And so sometimes they roll it out and we say, no, please don't roll this out until you get this feature, and this feature. So it might not be that anything's wrong. It might be that people said, I'm not going to deploy this until you add these features to it. So they're adding additional features to it. So it's going to release a more discoverable app named Polls and Teams so that you can do that in meetings and such. So that's coming, and that's going to come out. So that made it back to the in development. So we'll see that coming soon. So another one for Forms. This is a big week for Microsoft Forms. It's a big day for Forms for Tamara. You did a webinar on Forms or a class today, didn't you?
I did.
Anything else for Forms?
I'll go. No, nothing else for Forms that I know of, but I'll throw something else out here.
Throw
In
it out.
Microsoft Teams, text prediction for Teams Mobile. So we've started to see this in more and more, especially the cloud-based things like Outlook in the browser and things like that, where you start typing something and it gives you a suggestion as to, what you might want to type in instead. So you can just click the button, you get thank you very much instead of you having to type it out there. For me, I'm a keyboard person. I can type faster than it probably takes me to read it, figure out which one I want, grab the mouse, click it. I'm probably already done with the typing. However, when we're talking about Teams Mobile, yeah, I got really fat thumbs. Give me a suggestion that I can just click the button and we'll go with it. So I'm really happy to see that they're doing this in the mobile app, because that I think is where you really save a lot of times if you're not one of these, lightning thumb people and you're like, oh, thump. Yeah, you can just click thank you very much.
And you're kind of used to it already from
Exactly.
iOS. So
Exactly.
It's a great feature to have.
I think that's a good one.
There's a fun admin-y one that I can talk about if no one else has anything.
Admin-y Adam. Let's do it.
So there's several updates to the Compliance Center or to Defender, which is I'm always happy to see. There's actually a new update specifically for the government clouds, which is like 90% of my customers. So I was excited to see this. It's basically Teams content is now going to start being showed in the Content Explorer of the Compliance Center. Why this is important, what you see in the Content Explorer is basically an overview of different security stuff going on in compliance. And one of the things that it shows you that, for instance, NIST 853, CMMC, HIPAA, all those things want you to check is basically DLP violations going on in your organization. Now, you have alerts that go out with DLP that you can schedule, but this is basically a view where maybe you're not the person exactly supposed to handle the specific alerts, but maybe you're like on the security team, or maybe you're the lawyer that needs to know what's going on. You could go into the Content Explorer and Compliance Center and get a good overview of what was happening. Well, up until now, the DLP alerts would only show you essentially on stuff that was happening inside of SharePoint, if it was specific files, or inside of email if email content got sent out. They're actually adding Teams, so Teams chats and conversations are going to actually start showing DLP flaggings there as well too, which just gives you a more complete view of what's going on. So happy to see them continuing to work to evolve that. It's definitely something that you need to be doing for compliance anyways. So happy to see that further investment and development from Microsoft side.
Do you have anything, Tamara, or can I do another one?
I'm all good.
Okay.
Me too. I'm all good. So close us out, Tom.
Okay. So actually, there's a couple I'm going to throw out there. One, Microsoft Edge, preview PDF files in Outlook and File Explorer. So if you're using the Edge browser, and I think this is a pretty good reason to want to go out and start using the Edge browser, your users are going to be able to view a PDF file in a lightweight, rich, read-only preview mode. And this is available for Outlook desktop PDF attachments or for local PDF files using File Explorer. So it's a nice way, usually like when you're in Outlook and you click on something, it tries to give you a preview. Certain files, it's like, I got nothing for you. You're just getting a blank screen, download it. You're now going to be able to get that PDF view without actually having to download and or open the file. I think that's a cool thing. And then another one that was Microsoft Teams related, if you're dealing with the career coach feature in Microsoft Teams, it's now going to feature edx.org I think it is, content, an online course provider within the learning experience. edx.org has a lot of cool courses in it. And the fact that they're now pulling in that content and it's going to be part of that, I think is a really cool thing. And that should be out sometime this month for GCC worldwide. Yeah, GCC and worldwide. So keep an eye open for that if you've been using the career coach feature in Teams.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Tamara, do you want to take us into rolling out?
I do. And we've got a little something for the introvert and a little something for the extrovert here.
Ooh.
In Microsoft Teams, for the extrovert now, you can pin your own video in Teams meetings. So currently users can pin video feeds to increase the size of the desired video on their own screen. And now Microsoft has expanded the ability for users to pin their own video on the stage as well. This way, users can also see their own video in the increased size on their screen. So that's for people who like looking at themselves. Then we have for the introvert, hide your own video in Teams meetings. So currently, the user's video is displayed in that bottom right-hand corner of the meeting screen. But this feature allows you to hide your own video during a meeting. This will help reduce distractions during the call while still having your video available for other participants. I would caution you though, if you can't see you on the meeting screen, you may forget that you have your webcam on and do things that are not suitable for work.
Now watch, that's going to be the thumbnail here.
And I'm talking about things like this.
Yeah,
Tamara,
the face
are you
that you don't want
speaking
anybody
from
to see that.
personal experience?
Maybe.
So
those are the two that I'm really excited about rolling out.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take a couple here. OneDrive and SharePoint, improved move or copy user experience. So basically, they're just going to make it easier for you to use the move and copy if you're trying to move files and folders around. It will look different right offhand based on what we've got here. I can't tell you how different it's going to look, but it's going to look different. So I think it gives you a better way to see the different libraries that you can move stuff to. And it's a little bit more intuitive to just click and move stuff over rather than having to go hunt with URLs and stuff like that. The other one that I think is really cool, and that is in Microsoft Lists, they've now got a board view. And this is rolling out. It says in January, I just checked my client. I don't have it yet, bummer. But this is going to be going to all the different tenants, GCC, GCC High, DoD, and worldwide. But you'll be able to view your list items in a board with swim lanes that represent their current progress. So if you're used to dealing with like Kanban, it's basically you're going to have columns here that may be, backlog, work in process, completed, and you're going to have your list items in those swim lanes in card type format. And if you want to take something from backlog to work in progress, you should just be able to pull things over, I think, and drag them into the column for in progress or take them from in progress to completed. I think that is a really cool way to be displaying data. You're definitely not going to use it for every list you have, but there are some lists where it would be really nice just to see it in that Kanban style board in their what they call swim lanes. Look for that one coming out here anytime in the really near future, because again, they have rolling out for January of this year, and we're not in January anymore.
I'll be really interested to see how that actually looks.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's much like the card format where you can say how many fields you want to have displayed. So while the form may have this many fields, your card, you may only have like this many that you show, right, which is only relevant to the view that you're dealing with. So,
right. Yeah.
See.
Yeah. So to Tom's earlier point, it's kind of funny. I think everything listed in rolling out is listed for release in January calendar year 2022. And it's now February. Like literally every item has that as its release day, which is kind of interesting.
I did not notice that.
That means next week we're going to have a lot of updates with either date changes or status changes. Yep.
I had two from our side, but Jen, is there anything else you wanted to talk about first?
Just Microsoft Teams, shared templates between Teams and SharePoint. So that's one, I know we've talked about that a couple of weeks. So that one is one to still be watching.
Templates is one of the templates is one of the things that I didn't really get into using until somewhat moderately recently, even though I consider myself a power user. If you guys are not out there using templates for some of the stuff that exists in SharePoint and Teams, even in like Word and Excel, you should be. Take a look at them. They oftentimes can give you a starting point to save you a ton of time if you're trying to go through and make something from scratch.
And then just one last one, Whiteboard for GCC High. So
Yep.
if you've been waiting, you've been waiting. So that
The
one,
biggest thing for me on that, I've had clients that did this. I'm sure Jen remembers this from like 3 years ago when I first started working. If you use any of the Surface hubs and stuff like that, they would have Whiteboard on them, but because Whiteboard wasn't out for the government clouds, if you were a Gov Cloud user, you literally couldn't log in to use the Whiteboard. So I've had a client that had like a $60,000 Surface hub that they bought that they couldn't realistically use Whiteboard on it, because like why Whiteboard existed, it would just save locally onto the Surface hub. You couldn't log into your tenant to do anything with it. So like they spent 60 grand for a thing that they couldn't use. So this coming out, I'm sure they'll be very happy about 3 years later now. But for anyone else, this also does now make it more viable if you actually do like stuff like Surface hubs and some of the stuff like that, like the huge TVs you can buy from Microsoft to integrate with workplaces. If you're in the government side, this is now going to make that viable, because once Whiteboard comes out for the Gov side, you'll be able to log into your tenant directly on those Surface hubs. I really just had one. I was also going to mention the Whiteboard thing just because I had personal experience seeing a client with that. This one I just thought was kind of cool. This isn't necessarily overly admin-y, and it's not really that relevant to me and my actual day-to-day professional life. But in rolling out, they have a pretty interesting feature for Microsoft Teams, parent connection and Teams for education. I thought there's a decent chance people who listen to this may actually see this with their kids. Basically, the idea is you can, as a teacher, as an educator, if you're in Teams for Education, you can actually set up connections where you will have the ability to chat and talk with like guardians or parents of the people in your class. You can go through and talk about their grades, what's going on with their assignment, any feedback, anything you need to do. Ultimately, what I thought was really cool about this is I think this kind of shows a pretty valuable step forward in remote education. Something that is definitely being spurred on by everything going on with coronavirus and having to do that. But I like to see the investment from Microsoft. If you were sitting down and talking about you need an effective way to truly remotely educate, what would you do? When you're talking about younger kids, obviously in college, you're not going to be reaching out to someone's guardian. But when you're dealing with 12-year-olds, there's probably opportunities where you need to talk to someone. And I would say that was something that was probably I tried to go remote learning for elementaries and junior highs and high schools. So seeing this coming out and giving a pipeline to where teachers are going to be able to have direct conversations with the guardian or the parent of the people in question, to have the normal type of conversations you have about like, oh, hey, I noticed they were struggling, or hey, this incident happened that I wanted to let you know about, type of a thing. Just cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we only have a couple in launch, so I'm going to pass it to Tamara and Tom. We'll start with Tamara.
I just have one more in rolling out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's that we can add a group of approvers.
Oh, yes.
To approval request in Microsoft Teams. So users will be able to select Office 365 groups as approvers when creating a new approval request within the Teams approval app. So this would be great if you've got a group of people who are eligible to approve things, but you only need like one person to approve it. Instead of trying to send that out to all these different people, you can just assign it to the group. So I think that's great. And I have nothing that I'm excited about launched.
All right, passing it to Tom.
I didn't have anything really highlighted either, but I'll go ahead and do the Microsoft project for the web and roadmap capabilities coming out to GCC. If you're GCC, you should have them now. It's fully launched, so rock on.
All right, well, Teams casting from mobile device to Microsoft Teams rooms. So again, if you're waiting for that, I guess you're waiting for that. So that one, if you're using the Teams room and the devices, that would be a feature I'm sure you're waiting for. So that is rolling out. And the last two are compliance center. So Adam, I'll pass them to you if they're interesting.
Well, the one thing I'll note, the same thing I talked about at the start, where I mentioned the DLP data for Teams coming out for the government clouds. It's now launched for non-government clouds. So if you're in commercial, you now could actually go through and see that. So I talked about it a little bit at length about why up to the Gov Cloud side, but commercial just now has it launched. Nice to see.
Cool. All right. Well, canceled. We have a few. This one, semantic search, and the description says, you will experience improved search accuracy as the search engine will now understand your intent and contextualize the meaning of what you typed.
I don't know that I want a computer understanding my intent.
But it says this item is being removed from the roadmap and will be republished with an update in the future. So maybe
the
it
intent
will.
was we're not going to do this.
Maybe they realized that the machine cannot understand my intent. I don't know. That's getting removed.
Love it.
Cross-tenant people search that was coming out with limited availability. The feature is being postponed and being republished with updated information in the future. So this was for customers with multiple tenants, and it was going to allow them to do people search across tenants. So I think we've talked about this one. I think this was one been on here before. So this would be like if you had multiple companies, multiple domains, and you wanted to search across, but that's getting postponed. And then creating a task from a message in Teams for GCC, it's canceled as it's a duplicate. So the feature's not canceled, just that one because it is a duplicate. So nothing to see there, folks. So that is all we have this week. So nothing too long, but we will be back next week with another set of updates for everyone. So thank you very much for joining us this week, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Stay
Bye.
warm.